is up, my planting people? My name is Lithius and welcome to Roots Ready. In today's video, I am going to be showing you how to pollinate, harvest and plant your Anthurium seeds. And the plant that I'll be featuring today is this one right here. This is my Anthurium forgetii. I'm going to show you one of the better leaves. This one over here. This one over here. This is one of the latest ones with some damage on there. I'm not sure what's going on. But anyway, this is the mother plant today, and we're going to get straight into it. So once your inflorescence has entered the male stage, it's going to look something like this. It's going to have some white dusty deposits on the inflorescence. And what you want to do is just very carefully dust off some of this pollen onto some tin foil. All right, so I've got my Anthurium magnificum cross regale over here, and I'm going to collect the pollen. I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm using a bit of rolled up tissue paper, just a bit of kitchen towel. And what I'm doing is I'm just going to lightly dust the inflorescence over here. You can kind of see like the pollen sort of falling onto this foil paper down here. I'm going to collect that, and I might collect it over the next couple of days, and with this I can then use it to pollinate my Anthurium forgetii. It's very hard to tell, but you can kind of see some of the dusting, that yellow speckle on the tin foil. And that's from my Anthurium regale cross magnificum that I collected back in April and stored in my freezer. I like to name and date mine as well. So you can see Anthurium MR, April 2022, just so I know when it was collected. I do like to collect as much pollen as I can from as many different species of Anthurium that I own. But today I'm going to be doing something slightly different. I'm going to try to pollinate this inflorescence over here with two types of pollen. So I'm going to try to do top half with my Anthurium radicans cross luxurians, and the bottom half with the regale cross magnificum, and we'll see what we get. The next thing you want to do is wait until your inflorescence is receptive, and you'll be able to tell that when you can see some water droplets like so on your inflorescence. Once that happens, it means that the female flowers are now ready to be pollinated, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. So throughout the whole pollination process, I like to get quite hands-on, get my hands dirty. A lot of people recommend using a small paintbrush or makeup brush to dust off your pollen onto your tin foil, and then to use that same paintbrush when your other inflorescence is ready to dust it onto your inflorescence. And that's a great method, but for me, I just use my hands. I find that it works very well. It has been successful, and that way I can kind of tell the amount of pressure that I'm adding onto the inflorescence so that I don't risk damaging any of the flowers. Because I remember the first time I did this, I was really sort of rough with the paintbrush, and instead of pulling off the pollen, I actually broke off the flowers on the inflorescence, because inflorescence is basically a collection of flowers in one part of the plant, and I learned my lesson from that. So I don't want to make that mistake again, so I like to use my hands. So we're going to get straight in. I'll show you what I do next. Okay, so I'm just going to carefully open up my little packet of pollen that I've collected, and I first just want to get my fingers wet with some of that inflorescence juice. Some of that nectar. You can see it here on my fingers where that dust is, and that's plenty of pollen. And I just gently rub it all over like so, all over the plant. As I said, I'm focusing the bottom part with the magnificum cross regale. So lots of pollen here, you can see that. Look at that, lovely. And we're just gonna, again, generously add this just to the bottom half. And when you're doing this, guys, you want to be really careful not to damage the flower. So on the top of the stem, I'm going to be using the Luxurians cross with Radicans. You can see some of that pollen over here. It's not much. It didn't bear too much. This was the first ever flower from this plant. So I'm hoping for the best. All right, so that's phase one completed. We've now pollinated our Anthurium. And the next step is just to wait and see what happens. In my experience, different species of Anthurium take different lengths of time in order to produce the fruit. So now it's just a waiting game, really. I found that Forgetii by far produces fruit the quickest. Is very, very rapid. You can find that once you pollinate it within about 2 months, you might be able to start to collect some berries. I have pollinated my massive Anthurium regale cross magnificum, and that's still going. I pollinated that a long time ago, and it still hasn't started to produce any berries. It is, I can see now the first signs in the past week of some bumps appearing, but it's taking a lot longer. And I've heard that species such as the Luxurians can take up to a year, even longer, to produce seed. But in the case of hybridization, I've decided to use my Anthurium Forgetii as sort of the mother plant because I find it produces seed a lot quicker. So that's it. So the next step is just to wait and see what happens. And you're going to know that you were successful in pollinating your plant when the inflorescence turns from a yellowy type of color to a green color. Then you know you're in the game, things are happening, and it's a matter of waiting until it's ripe and it's ready to be harvested. I'm going to go ahead and show you an example of an inflorescence that it was successful and what it looks like in the interim before harvest. And this is it. This is another inflorescence on the same mother plant, the same Forgetii. And you can see here where it's receptive, it's turned that green. It's starting to develop those bumps. It looks really, to me, weird. It looks sort of like, it makes me a bit uncomfortable if I look at it for too long. It's trust the process at this point. It's just a matter of waiting. For me, at this point, with the Anthurium Forgetii, I imagine that this plant is going to require maybe another 2 to 3 weeks before the berries turn to that lovely red color, and then we know that it's really close to harvest time. One tip that I would recommend is when your inflorescence starts to turn purple or that sort of that dark beige color, you really want to put something around it to catch the seeds. You see at the bottom here, I've got loads of seeds that have fallen off into the bag. And if you don't do this, you can lose quite a few seeds. So this is like just a way of capturing it. You can use something a bit nicer than a plastic bag, but this works. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off and just show you what we're working with. Look, it's just like falling into the bag. And ladies and gentlemen, this is an inflorescence that is ready to be harvested. Look at that. It is, tell me that doesn't look extremely weird. Kind of like eyes. It looks like, oh, it just looks really strange. So once it gets to this stage, it's really easy to harvest. You just sort of gently pull off the seeds like so. Look, it's already, some of them are already coming out of their sort of the skin. Look at that. You just pluck it off like so. You don't want to overdo it. Some of the seeds will come off at different times. As you can see, some of them are ready to be pulled out and some of them are not. So you just wait. At this point, there's no rush. Just over the next couple of days, just check your bag if you decide to use this method. Or you can just come through, have a look, just wait until you can see here where one of the seeds, can you see that? You can see here where one of the seeds have actually already come out of the fruit. Yes, or you can wait a couple of days and just try to just let it naturally come out of the inflorescence when it's ready to do so. Okay, so got quite a few seeds here. Some of the fruits may have 2 seeds. in there. Some may have one. So, this is a very good harvest, I would say. And the next step, sorry, it was out of focus. The next step is to get these washed up and then planted. So I'm going to take you through that step now. Okay, so for the next step, what you're going to want is a bit of kitchen towel, just like so. And you're going to want to submerge your seeds in some water. The reason for this is that it makes it super easy, super easy to remove the fruit from the seed. So what you want to do is just gently press the fruit up against the edge of the glass like so, and the seed will pop out. There you go. So there's the seed that's popped out, and you're going to want to do that for all of the fruit. That way, what it does is it cleans the seeds from any of the fruit which could cause fungal issues when you're planting it, and that could just impair the growth of your plant. So just as a precaution, I would recommend this. Super easy, doesn't take very long. So next, what you want to do is dump out all of the water and all of the skins. Get rid of that and then just be left with just your seeds. So now that I've gotten rid of the water, I just dump all of the seeds onto a paper towel like so, just to dry them off and to give them a bit of a further cleaning. Now, once that is completed, your next step is to prepare your medium. Today, I'll be using sphagnum moss. You can use perlite, pond, soil, whatever you're most comfortable with, whatever you find the most success in propagating plants with. I would suggest that you use that. Today, I'm going to use sphagnum moss because that's what I've got available. And I found that a lot of people have success with it. So if it's not broken, why fix it, right? So I've prepared my sphagnum moss. Next step is to plant the seeds. Okay, so I have already prepared my sphagnum moss from earlier this week where I did my first harvest. You can see some of the seeds already in here. It's lightly moist. I don't want it to be too damp. And I want the seeds to be kind of separated. So I'm using this plastic Ferrero Rocher chocolate container, which is perfect for any sort of propagation. So get your hands on one of those, guys. And I just want to lightly just sort of sprinkle the seeds in there like so. And just lightly drop them in like so. You don't want them to be too close together. Now that is probably a little bit too dense for my liking, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wait until we start to see some of the plants sprout, and then as they grow, I will remove them from this container and plant them either separately into a larger container. And that is it. That is all it takes. It just takes a little bit of patience to have some Anthurium seeds that are ready to be planted. Again, just as we started this journey, we're going to end it. It's all to do with patience. So now you want to just get this into a place with high humidity. I'm going to cover mine up like so. I'm going to place it under a grow light and just wait until these plants start to bud, start to produce leaves, and then transplant them into something a little bit more roomy, just with some more space for them to grow, spread their roots, and spread their leaves. And that's it. That's all it takes to pollinate, harvest, and propagate your Anthurium seeds. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, keep planting.